you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked the young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. It is 2 minutes past 10 p.m. Eastern on this Tuesday, 13th of June. Happy name day to me. Sant'Antonio. Buon onomastico to you, Tony Marinaro. Thank you very much. And all the Antonios around the world. And a very, very happy 59th wedding anniversary to my parents as well. Wishing you many, many more. All right, the Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Playground, your premier gaming destination, open 24/7. Drinks are always free while you play. Over 600 poker machines, poker tournaments, cash games, daily promotions, free valet, and unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, recently named by Deloitte and CIBC as one of Canada's best managed companies. The country's leading business award recognizing innovative and world-class companies, the best managed companies. Canadian companies designation fuels Energy's purpose of creating progress for their customers, their employees, and their communities. Join a winning team and check out Energy's career page for available opportunities. And also brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi, brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards. Bittt at Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Bittt at Tibi, embrace your true nature. We are 20 minutes of playing time away in period number 3 to see the Las Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup. They're up 3-1 in the series. Tonight is game 5. After 2 periods of play, they are up by a score of 6-1. 6-1. And the Cinderella story is over for the Florida Panthers. And I watched the way they've played in the Stanley Cup final. And I can't believe that this is the same team that beat the Boston Bruins, beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, and beat the Carolina Hurricanes. As a matter of fact, I can't believe that this is the same team that actually even won at least a game versus these teams. But it is what it is. And, Matthew Tkachuk, unfortunately, is hurt. That hurts a lot. I would imagine he's not the only one. And Sergei Bobrovsky is looking like the Bobrovsky of last year and earlier in the season and the year before that than he was the guy in the first 3 rounds. There's a lot to talk to you about tonight. We're going to I think we're going to go with an abbreviated show. We're probably going to cap it at about give or take 30 minutes. Because I want you to be able to watch period number 3 and watch the Stanley Cup and all that stuff. We're going to be talking Montreal Canadiens on this podcast tonight. Because earlier this evening at around 5:44 p.m., I'm happy to tell you that we broke a story, although I wish it would have been a much better situation, a much better circumstance, because it's never fun to report on somebody losing their job. And in this case, 2 people losing their job. And based on what I hear from a bunch of people, some very good people as well. So hearing that Donald Baumforth, head physio, and Graham Reinbend, head athletic therapist of the Montreal Canadiens, have been relieved of their duties. That was once again at 5:54 p.m. The Montreal Canadiens did not come out with a tweet, did not come out with a statement, did not come out with a press release, nothing. And they said that they would not come out with anything. But members of the media called the Montreal Canadiens and said, Tony had this report and the Sick Podcast had this report. Is it true? And the Montreal Canadiens said, yes, it's true. And I think it shows a lot of class from the Montreal Canadiens because it's not something that they're happy to report. It's not something that they wanted to put out there in terms of a press release or whatever. Two good people lost their job today. And some of you watching right now on YouTube Live and Facebook Live and Twitter Live, and everyone's got an opinion. You're very passionate about your team. And some of you are saying that, you know what, this was an obvious move and you would have did the same thing. But nevertheless, it is two people that lost their job, which is never fun. I bring in one guy who covers the Montreal Canadiens day in, day out, night in, night out, like pretty much 12 months a year. I don't even know if he's taking vacation this summer, even though he's got himself a beautiful home and a beautiful deck and a beautiful pool. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com. What's going on?
Hey, Tony, how are you doing? It is sad. I mean, Graham Reinband, 19 years with the Canadiens. I remember him when he was a athletic therapist for the North Shore Broncos football team.
Oh, really?
Team before he moved up and made his way to the Canadiens. And, these guys work, when you're around the team, especially when you're on the road, they work incredible amount of hours. It's crazy the days that these guys put in, especially on a game day when they're there for a morning skate and dealing with players before the practice, after the practice, before the game, after the game. It's long days, but injuries have been a big problem for the Canadiens the last 2 years, setting an NHL record this season in man games lost, breaking the record they set the previous season. So at the post-mortem news conference, Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes both said they were going to look into the situation and make changes if necessary. And I guess they felt these changes were necessary.
Stu, I want to thank you not only for coming on tonight under short notice, because once the news broke at that point, I wanted to get someone who's been covering the team once again for quite some time and who knows Graham very, very well. And I want to thank you for your article that you wrote in the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com for giving us credit here at the Sick Podcast for breaking the story. Thank you very much for that.
Credit where credit's due. Tony's a good scoop.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, but not always, not everyone in the media is like that. But I have to tell you that today was pretty good in that regard. So it's very much appreciated. And there's a stat I was looking for, which I'm going to tell you right now, I got from your article. So I'll give you the credit. We put up a little graphic here, but it's in terms of the man games lost. All right. The Canadiens led the NHL season in man games lost to injury with 751, breaking the league record they set in the previous season with 720 man games lost. We were looking for that, and we got it from your article. So thank you for that information, and you had it there. That's not a record that you want to break, Stu, and that's one of the reasons why today Donald and Graham have been relieved of their duties.
Yeah, and injuries, it's bad luck in a lot of cases too. Josh Anderson crashes into the goalpost and suffers a high ankle sprain. You can't blame trainers for that. You can't blame, Slavkovsky has a knee injury. You can't blame trainers for that. Where the concern was, was just guys coming back from injuries and getting re-injured. Sean Monahan playing on a broken foot early in the season and being allowed to continue to play on it. It ended up, causing a groin issue, and he was 25 games he played and he was done for the year. Brendan Gallagher breaking his ankle, being allowed to play on a broken ankle, coming back and then missing a bunch of time, coming back and breaking the same ankle again. Mike Matheson with a groin injury, coming back too soon and then being injured again. Caden Goulet, I remember the game where he suffered a high ankle sprain. He was back out playing again afterwards. It's just, and at the post-mortem news conference, Gordon and he's both talked about how
Cole Caulfield playing through a shoulder injury now. Now we have to put into context, Stu, that we don't have all the information, you and I, and there's some players that choose to play through injury when if it was up to the head athletic therapist or the trainer, they'd probably say, we'd rather you don't. But ultimately, a player knows their threshold, knows what injury they have. Sometimes they're told that if they play through it, they won't re-aggravate it. It won't get worse. So there's some things that we don't know, Stu, right? We should point that out.
Without a doubt. I mean, and, they even Hughes and Gordon talked about this. A guy like Brendan Gallagher will have an arrow sticking through his head and say that he's fine. He's just that type of guy. So medical stuff, but, when it's a broken bone, it'll show up in an x-ray. And at some point, I think you need to protect players from themselves. And that's what Kent Hughes said at that news conference. They're going to have to do a better job of protecting players from themselves. You know, Sean Monahan, I understand why he wanted to play on that broken foot. We saw him wearing Calgary when he showed up for the game wearing the boot cast, and then he played that game. And we understood why he wanted to play against Calgary, the team he had been with for 10 years. It's a big game for him. He had it marked on the calendar, but then he continued to play a couple of games after that on the broken foot. And it reminds me, you go back to the 2017-18 season, I think it was, and Shea Weber broke his foot in the first game of the season. And then he played 25 more games on a broken foot, and that led to the ligament surgery and then all the issues that he had after that. And like, how many times are you going to keep letting guys play on broken foot? And like, how much of that is Graham? How much of that is the doctor saying he's okay to play? There's a lot of things that go into behind the scenes as far with injuries with players. You know, we'll walk by the room on the road and we don't see it at home, but on the road you'll see sometimes the training room door will be open. You'll see all the guys on the table getting whatever physio they need. We don't see that in Montreal, obviously, but there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we don't know in the media. We in the media don't know like how it works as far as the final say. Is it Graham Reinband who says he's good to play? Is it Graham Reinband who talks to the doctors and the doctors say he's good to play? But it just seems to be there's been too many cases of players being injured, coming back too soon and re-aggravating that injury and being out for an extended period of time. And with Sean Monahan, the value that he had or could have had at the trade deadline, like why he wasn't shut down for 4 weeks of a broken foot, put in a cast 4 weeks, 6 weeks, it's healed, you come back and you play, why that wasn't done and have him ready and healthy going into the trade deadline was a big mistake that the Canadians made, whether it was management, Graham Reinband, the doctors, whoever. That was a bad decision to let him play. He wanted to play, but again, sometimes you need to protect players from themselves. And I think moving forward, that's something the Canadians are really going to have to focus on.
Yeah. Look, there are a lot of people, and it's you know, I'm taking a look at YouTube Live right now and on the chat, Stu, and there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, you know what, you know, you have to make a move, saw this one coming. There's a lot of people are saying to blame all this on the head athletic therapist, or this is kind of sad, but the organization, like, they had to do something at the same time. And it's true. Some good people lost their jobs today, and we feel for them and we're thinking of them. And I'm sure they're going to bounce back. But, you know, they couldn't back-to-back seasons, record numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't make a move and they come back with the same staff and the same thing happens next year, I mean, you know, all of a sudden they're taking an awful lot of heat for not doing anything in the off season. So they reacted. And now you talked about a quote at the year-end presser. Let's see Agnello and Sammy and Master Control if we can bring up the quote at the end of the year. All right. Jeff Gordon, we led the league in man games lost last year. I think we broke the record this year. So we're pretty mindful of it. We'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out where we've got to get better, and it's definitely something not lost on us. I mean,
and it's a new management team also, and Jeff Gordon might have his own people he's dealt with before, whether in Boston, New York, someone available that they're going to bring in. But again, it's been a really big problem for 2 seasons in a row. And as I mentioned, even going back to like the Shea Weber situation, you know, and Carey Price with his knee issues, and Paul Byron with his hip, and you know, let's say injuries happen in hockey, and the Canes have been unlucky in a lot of situations with the injuries. But again, just it's time after time, guys playing through injuries and re-aggravating the injury and being out for more time than they could have been or should have been if they had just been dealt with properly right from the beginning. So, you know, Brendan Gallagher said at the end of the season he's going to be more honest with himself moving forward. We'll see if that's true. That's going to be difficult for him. You know, Jeff Gordon said Brendan Gallagher's going to you have to tie him down to a table to keep him from going out on the ice. That's one of the things that people love about Brendan Gallagher. He's a warrior. He wants to be there. He wants to be out there for his teammates. I go back to last season. It was just over the holiday period when they were in Nashville, and I was at the practice, and Gallagher went down really hard in the corner, like really hard. Yeah. He was down for a while. When Gallagher's down for a while, you know he's hurt. Graham Reinband came on the ice, got him up. They went to the bench, and Gallagher sat there for maybe 5 minutes. Then he came back, and he finished the practice. And then he played in the next game against the Predators. That was the last game he played. That's when he broke the ankle again. And when I asked at the end of the season if it was the ankle that hurt when he went down, he said yes. So you wonder, like, why was he allowed to continue that practice? It was a practice, you know, the Allen Iverson practice. Yeah. It was why he was allowed to continue that practice, never mind play the next game. and then he broke the ankle again, and he was out for another extended period of time.
Stu, there's something that we have to consider here, and not that the players did these gentlemen in, but one of the things that we have to consider is Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes in their exit meetings. They met with all the players.
Mm-hmm.
They talked to all the players. And you can imagine the ones that were injured, they asked them about their injury. They asked them about the diagnosis. They asked them about the recovery. They asked them about the training. They asked them about everything. And so after taking a look at the numbers of man games lost last year, the number of man games lost this season, the situations that you talked about, other bits and pieces of information that they were able to gather in those exit interviews, this is what they came up with.
Yep.
And like you said, they're not their hires, right? They're not their hires.
Exactly.
Right?
And the players that we asked at the end of the season defended the medical staff. Jordan Harris, a young player, Gallagher, these guys all said these guys do great work to get us back out. Did they say something different when they were talking with Gordon and Hughes one-on-one at the end of the season? Who knows? They're the only ones who know for sure. But again, just to go back, I mean, the hours that these guys work, and I don't know Graham well. I mean, I've seen him around for years and years covering the team, but I know a family, and these guys put in a lot of hours. They're away from their family a lot of time. They don't make the money that the NHL players make.
No.
It's a tough job. It can be hard on families. And This is a hard day for both of their families losing a job. Somebody losing their job isn't something to celebrate, but the Canadiens' new management team obviously felt these were moves that had to be made moving forward. Whether are they scapegoats, or is this just showing that we're doing something?
Yeah,
who knows for sure. But it seemed like something had to be done, and these were the decisions that were taken to moving forward.
Yeah, I know less about Donald. I know a little bit more about Graham because, of course, he's been here for a very, very long time. I don't know him very well, by all accounts, based on what I hear. Very, very good man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could you imagine the head athletic therapist of a team like the Montreal Canadiens? Man, it's like everyone must try to get to you, and you got to be as secretive and as private and as confidential as they come. I mean,
and if you're not, you don't keep that job for 19. You don't keep that job for 9 months. Never mind 19 years.
You're fired after 9 minutes. You're fired after 9 minutes. And think of the injuries that he was aware of that other people were not aware of. Think of sometimes the injuries that they reported, which, Stu, you'd have to think that not every injury that they said was an injury to a specific body part is accurate, right? I mean, right? They probably, some players' injuries over the years. I mean, they probably said it was lower body, was probably upper body, was probably upper body, was probably lower body, and all that stuff. So,
well, Kirby Dach had a non-COVID illness virus that suddenly developed into a lower body injury this year. That was one of the sort of bizarre things. Dadonov went from being a healthy scratch to a therapy day to a lower body injury to the Canadiens have been much more transparent with the new management team, but not so much when it comes to injuries.
I don't remember who it was, but once upon a time, I think a player was diagnosed with general body soreness, which is what I've been going through ever since I hit 40 years of age. And now I'm 50, and it's about 10 years I've been going through general body soreness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, trust me, Brendan Gallagher goes through general body soreness from probably game 2 until game 82, if he can play 82 games, or however many games he plays.
It's tough to be talking about possible assistance once again on a night when someone lost their jobs, but it is the nature of the beast, unfortunately. Yeah. And I wonder what the connection is with Gorton, and I'm sure, and Hughes, and some people that work in that. Like, I'm sure they must know a ton of people.
Oh, for sure.
And who doesn't want to be the head physio or the head athletic therapist of the Montreal Canadiens? They probably got 1,000 phone calls and messages already.
Well, and as Kent Hughes is a former agent, he would have had physiotherapists and athletic therapists that he would have sent players to see in the offseason, or maybe if he wasn't happy with the treatment one of his players was getting from the team staff, he probably had other people that he dealt with, or I'm sure he did have other people he dealt with. So it'll be interesting to see who they announced to replace these two guys.
We have one of the best in the city in terms of strength and conditioning coach, and I don't know the realm of everything that he does, and just what he branches out into. But I know you know who I'm talking about, and I don't even know if he's interested in the position, but he did have it once upon a time. I'm talking about Scott Livingston. I mean, now, once again, they do have a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
It was not the strength and conditioning coach that was relieved of his duties today. It was the head physio and the head athletic therapist. I would imagine Scott is your one-stop shop, and he can do everything. And once again, I don't even know if it would be a position that interests him.
Graham's almost like your first responder ambulance guy there too, right? When guys are hurt, first guy running. So it's there's a lot involved in his job. As I said, a lot of hours, a lot of pressure too, and players we've seen some serious injuries on the ice with the Canadians over the years, and he's the guy. He's got to be on the ball all the time. So tough day for him. I guess if you want to look on the bright side, I'm sure he'll be able to get work in his field moving forward, carrying your name of the former Canadians athletic therapist
for 19 years.
Be able to spend more time with his family now, because as I said, those guys don't see much of their families during the season, whether they're on the road or at home. Because even when they're at home, they're gone most of the day. So it's as I said, they don't make the money that players make. It's people look at jobs like that and they think how glamorous they are. And there's a lot of perks that come with working for a professional hockey team or even covering a professional hockey team. But there's also a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't see and don't realize the toll this can take on people from a family perspective and whatnot. So I'm sure this is a really difficult day for Graham Reinband.
Sports science departments nowadays can be extremely sophisticated and very technologically advanced and stuff like that. I'm wondering how the Canadian Sports Department, Science Department is set up, and just how ahead of the game or on point or behind the game they are.
Well, that's something that I'm sure Jeff Gorton was one of the main things he was looking at. They came in, now they've got their own coach in place. Now they're going to have their own sort of athletic therapist in place. Moving through, they got their own scouts and whatnot in place. So it's a sort of a gradual rebuilding process. And they've looked at the organization top to bottom. And as Jeff Gorton said in that post-mortem news conference, this was one of the things that he wanted to focus on and figure out why this was happening 2 years in a row, to set the record for man games lost to injuries.
Yeah. I talked about this months ago on the podcast, Stu. I wish I remembered the date. We would have pulled it up, but I remember doing it because, I had people very close to the situation give me their opinion on the subject. And they said to me, very close to the situation, by the way, very, very close. And they said to me that they thought that when it came to trauma incidents, they were the cream of the crop. They were the top of the league. But when it came to diagnosing injuries and treating injuries, that they had a long ways to go.
Well, remember when Shea Weber went in for what was supposed to be a minor knee surgery, like an arthroscopic type thing, and then ended up being major knee surgery? He went under. They put him under. He figured he was coming out. He was going to be ready to go in a few weeks, and then it turned out, no, we got bad news for you. It was worse than we thought. You're going to be out for months. So those type of things. And again, is that how much of that is on the athletic therapist? How much of that is on the medical staff or the doctors or whatnot? So there's not just excuse me. There was 2 guys lost their jobs today, but there's a whole bunch of people involved in making these decisions behind the scenes.
All right. So is this the way you thought it would go down? Here we are, 13th of June. And it was about less than 10 days ago that Cole Caulfield was signed to an 8-year contract extension. And 9 or 10 days later, when was it? It was 8 days ago. It was on the Monday, right? On the Monday, they announced the Caulfield contract. 8 days later, of course, we got the report that the head physiotherapist and the head athletic therapist have been relieved of their duties. I would imagine next on tap is the NHL draft.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. It's the number 5 pick, and with Michkov's available, and it doesn't stop. Tony seems like Canadians. It's like 12 months a year. There's maybe a month off. August is about the only month that there's nothing going on. But heading into the draft, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting what Ken Hughes tries to move up, what he does. There's all kinds of things, interesting stuff going on around right now with the Canadians.
My buddy Paul texted me today and said, "Okay, Tony, so who are the Canadians drafting 5th overall?" I said, "Paul, tell me who the top 4 are going to be."
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm going to tell you who I think the 5th pick is going to be. But unless I know who the top 4 are going on, I don't know.
Exactly.
Now, everyone knows that Connor Bedard is going number 1.
Yep.
And then after that, all bets are off. And as a matter of fact, the consensus is that Fantilli is going number 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on a call with someone yesterday who's in the know, and he believes that Carlson is going to go number 2 to Anaheim and not Fantilli.
Yep.
So, I mean, that changes up everything. And at that point, you would think Fantilli is going to go 3rd. And if Fantilli goes 3rd, well, I would think that 4th or 5th is, does San Jose take Michkov, or do they take Will Smith? And I'll say this. My gut, Stu, is that if Michkov is available at 5, the Canadians will pass. I don't know this for a fact. It's just my gut feel.
I'm almost flip a coin on that one. Like, I know they're going to do their homework one way or the other, whatever decision they make. But I mean, last year, who thought Shane Wright was going to fall to number 4 going into the draft? That wasn't expected. I think Will Smith is sort of the really interesting guy here. He's a guy that, Kent Hughes coached in youth hockey in Boston. You have to think he'd really like to get him. You're wondering if he's talking with the teams above them, if maybe there's a trade he can make to move up. If one of the teams ahead of them isn't maybe not that interested, maybe they're going to take somebody else. If they can move up, make a trade to move up a spot or 2 to get Will Smith. That's something to keep an eye on. I think that's a guy that Kent Hughes would have a lot of interest in for many reasons. But with Michkov, if he's available, man, that's a tough one. That's such a tough decision to make, and long-term consequences too. But I'm almost 50-50 on it at this point, whether the Canadians would take him or not, because I don't try and pretend to be an expert on these draft prospects. I don't see them enough. But just from watching video highlights of him and listening to people who do scout for a living and what they've said about him, he's a hell of a talent. So it's going to be interesting to see. He's not a big guy. That's another thing that they might be a concern with the Canadians having small players already. But it's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a fun night in Nashville with the draft.
Stu, unless Kent Hughes wins all these poker tournaments and is a poker star at Playground, one of our sponsors, just based on listening to him speak, then again, maybe, you know what? This guy's so sharp that he probably doesn't want to give away his hand. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. A shout out goes out to Murphy Clinic, an aesthetic clinic specializing in medical aesthetic care. They offer permanent laser hair removal, as well as a wide range of treatments for skin problems such as acne, rosacea, fine lines, and more. They currently have 2 clinics, one located at Montreal Shop Angus, and the second on the North Shore in Terrebonne. They're also opening soon in Quebec Cité. Visit murphyclinic.ca or on Instagram at Murphy Clinic. All right, okay.
Let me just say a quick poker story with Kent.
Tell me.
So when I had a one-on-one with Kent after he got the job, and I was talking about Vinny Lecavalier, who, he was the agent for Vinny, and when he was trying to recruit Vinny, his agency business was sort of a little bit shaky at the time, whether he was going to be able to do it, and he was, recruiting Vinny pretty hard, and then he gets this call from Vinny, and Vinny says, "Okay, Kent, I'm going to go with you," and Kent says, "Oh, that's great," and there's a bit of a pause, and Vinny says, "You're not more excited than that?" And Kent Hughes says, "Well, I'm going to be negotiating your contracts. You don't want me to have a poker face?" So I guess I imagine he's probably a good poker player. He's a smart guy.
That's a good one. That's a really, really good one. By the way, about a minute ago, Aiden Hill made a glove save. I don't know if you saw it, off of Anthony Duclair.
No, I don't have the TV on.
He made like the save of the playoffs. Like, wow. Not that it really matters, because the score is 6-1 for Florida, for Vegas, with 11:48 left in period number 3. Mind you, where it can matter is Aiden Hill going to win the Conn Smythe?
Now, that's interesting.
I don't think he will. I think it's going to go to Marchessault. What do you think?
That's a good pick. I mean, he's been really solid through the playoffs, producing for a small guy. He's the only small guy they have. He's the only guy under 6 foot tall that the Vegas Golden Knights have. My question is, I want to
make it 7-1. By the way, make it 7-1.
I want to see what a Stanley Cup parade down the strip in Las Vegas is going to look like. That's going to be something.
Oh, that's going to be absolutely unbelievable. By the way, they say there's about 20,000 and it looks like it's Barbashev, by the way, who's made it. You got to see the images right now, Stu. It looks like there's about 20,000 people outside the T-Mobile Arena waiting to celebrate. This is going to be one huge party in Vegas.
Wow.
And by the way, my buddy Mike is leaving for Vegas tomorrow because he's going to watch the Canadiens men's national team play because they're playing in the CONCACAF Nations League tournament. So he's probably going to go watch a couple of games. He's also going to make a vacation out of it with his wife and stuff like that. But can you imagine, like when he booked the ticket, like he had no idea that the Stanley Cup obviously was going to come out one night before on Tuesday, June 13th, but he could have been there and it could have been an unbelievable party. Man, that's too bad.
Well, the first time I went there to cover a game when the Canadiens were in Vegas, it was before COVID, and man, what an atmosphere it is there. That arena, that arena rocks. It's a really fun building to watch a game in, and so there'll be a party tonight in Vegas, and you know it's good. It's good for hockey. It's good for hockey. A first-time Stanley Cup champion team.
Yeah.
Expansion team. It's creates more interest in that part.
Reinhardt has just narrowed the lead to 7-2, but this one game is, oh, by the way, what a snipe into the top corner. It was absolutely unbelievable. You know who's got season tickets to the Vegas Golden Knights? One of our friends.
Who's that?
Russ Amber.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. I was in a taxi. It's an Uber actually in Vegas when I was there, and I got in the Uber, and I was talking with guys and where you're from, and the Uber driver was looking at me, and I'm from Montreal, and I cover hockey.
Who are you talking to? Chris Weidman?
So he says, I said, "Are you a hockey fan?" He says, I hated hockey. He says, I had no use for hockey. He says, one of my friends told me he had tickets for the Golden Knights game. So I went to the game with him. Man, that's the coolest sport I ever saw. That's all I like now. I try and go to as many games as I can. He says, it's hard to get tickets now, but you just got so many people in those markets in the States. Watching hockey on TV and watching hockey live is night and day, right? So you can get people into an arena and see a live NHL game and the speed and the pace and everything else. That's the way to sell it. And this guy went from having no interest in hockey to becoming a huge hockey fan with the Golden Knights. It's
unbelievable, Stu. And we'll end it with this. The Vegas Golden Knights, 6 years later, have won the Stanley Cup. And it's not official yet. There's 10 minutes left, but they're going to win this thing. 6 years later. The Montreal Canadiens have been trying for 30 years, too.
Yeah. Well, one of the advantages now with these new expansion teams, especially where the draft is, they can get better players than what the Washington Capitals and those teams used to get.
Yeah.
The other thing is you're starting with a fresh slate. You're not handcuffed with any bad contracts right off the bat.
That's
true.
Sure
there's a lot of GMs and other teams in the NHL would love to be able to just wipe out their bad contracts and start from scratch again. And that's what these guys get an opportunity to do. They're not handcuffed by bad contracts that were, a guy in the third year of an 8-year contract who's not playing well. That doesn't. So they get a fresh start. And you got a good management, smart management, and they've had that.
Stu, thanks so once again for coming on a short notice. And I think we're going to break away here so I can give you a chance to watch the last 9 minutes of regulation and see the Stanley Cup come out. Look, we watch and we work all year for this to see the Stanley Cup come out and be presented. It is, probably the most prestigious trophy in all of professional sport. And it's arguably the hardest one to win. So I want to give you that opportunity. Thanks, Stu. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Tony. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much. In ending, Agnello gives me a call. And right after, we broke the story that the Canadiens were relieving their head physio and their head athletic therapist of their duties. And he calls me and he says, so I just saw the tweet. Yeah. So I said, yes. So he says, what are you doing now? And I said, you called me. I had to pull over. I'm on a Vespa ride here. So he says, it'd be cool for you to do a video. I said, to do what? To give a quick commentary on what happened and this and that and whatever, and to tell people to watch the podcast tonight. So I said, I got to go, man. I did my work, man. I broke my story. I did the tweet, this, that, whatever, all that stuff. So I thought about it. I said, I got to do this video. So I don't know. Maybe you've had a chance to see it on Twitter, but Agnello, if we can bring up the video. There we go. What a beautiful Vespa, eh? Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. We got Habs breaking news. The Sick Podcast is hearing that Donald Bomforth, head physio of the Montreal Canadiens, and Graham Reinbett head athletic therapists of the Montreal Canadiens, have been relieved of their duties. Of course, we know over the past couple of seasons, the Montreal Canadiens have lost a ton of man games due to injuries. That's not a record you want to have. Something was bound to give, and unfortunately, those two gentlemen have paid the price today. Our best wishes go out to them. More on this developing story and much more tonight on the Sick Podcast. Watch me at 10 p.m. I'm Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, your number one source for Habs news and Habs scoops. Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, Bittt, Tibi, and Playground. And there you go. So my question to you is that beautiful red Vespa, by the way, which I picked up at XL Moto. My question to you is, if we continue to break some stories, when are you buying the red helmet? Tony says, Jose Levesque. Jose, I already had the black one. I don't know. Now everyone's telling me to go back and buy the red one, which I might do. K Wolf, how did you get the inside news? Yeah, well, that's no. If you would know anything about this business, when you have a scoop, like you don't divulge. Lucky guess. That's how I know. You know, how did I find out today that 2 people were being relieved of their duties? Lucky guess. How did I find out 8 days before about Cole Caulfield's contract? Lucky guess. That's it. Anyway, my question to you is, do you want me to, if I'm going to continue to break a story or two here and there, do you want me to do it on the Vespa this summer? Hey, do you want me to do it? Taking a page out of Kevin Weeks' book, who basically Kevin Weeks will, when he breaks stories, will do it basically anywhere, in his car, in a restaurant or whatever. Do you want me to do it in my spa? Or do you want me to do it on the Vespa? I think the Vespa is kind of cool. Especially that beautiful red Vespa. Right? 7-3 is the score now. 8 minutes and 21 seconds left in regulation. All right. Okay. So once again, check out XL Moto. They're at 5480 Paris Street to pick up your Vespa. Once again, special thanks to all of you, my Sick Army, my Sick community. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi, brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, and brought to you in part by Playground. That's it for us. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, 10 p.m. If you enjoyed the podcast, you're watching right now on Facebook Live or Twitter Live, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. Like it, share it with your friends. We're building something pretty special here, one day at a time, and we're breaking stories. It's fun. Out of the basement in Ville LaSalle. Our own little media company here, based out of Kirkland, Quebec. Sick Media. Pretty sick day for our company. 8 days ago was a pretty sick day for our company. The next couple of days and the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months and the next hockey season are going to be pretty sick days for our company. And we're so happy to have you along for the ride. Know you, know us. We can't do it without you. We will never forget that. And we're never going to lose sight of that. If you're going to listen to us on Google, Apple, or Spotify, leave us a 5-star review. It's our way of feeling the love. It makes us feel good about it. Thank you very much, everyone. Same time, same place. Tomorrow night, it's the Sick Podcast. For Yellow and Sammy and Master Control, they're Cavallaro. It's Marination. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.